Sheriff's Communication Dispatcher 5538.
Well, I've got a situation. Last night, a friend of mine, she said that she had possibly killed her stepdad.
This stylish woman is accused of killing her stepfather after discovering he kept nude photos of her. Jade Jenks is an interior designer. Her stepfather is Tom Merriman. He operated a butterfly farm often visited by children.
They're ecstatic. I mean, there's nothing. It's a fun place to be.
Shocking testimony today from a Solana Beach woman accused of murdering her stepfather.
I bumped the mouse on his desktop computer and it shook the screen awake. And I looked and there's a picture of female breasts on the screen. And I look, I thought, those are my breasts. It was the most violating, just awful, gut-wrenching feeling ever.
Did you love Tom? Tom loved you.
Yes.
I mean, did you want your stepfather dead? Did you stand over him with a plastic bag and pull tight to keep him from breathing?
No.
Did you wrap a cord around his neck?
No.
And did you strangle him?
No.
Today, I want to talk about what Jade Jenks did. I haven't felt this many emotions looking into a case in a long time. It just like it. I feel like you can't really hear the details of this case without having strong emotions. And I've watched several videos about it, and there's a lot of information. But when I got more information and specifics, not just like a surface thing, it looked completely different to me after that. So I want to do what I usually do on my channel, which is I want to give you guys the facts, and then we'll discuss the theories, because some people believe what Jade says, some people don't, but even the ones who don't believe her, there's a disagreement with whether the punishment fit the crime. So I'll give you guys the facts and then you can decide for yourself. The whole thing started at 9:30 a.m. on New Year's Day 2021 in San Diego, California, when someone called 911.
Sheriff's Communication Dispatcher 5538.
Well, I've got a situation. Last night, a friend of mine asked me to come over. She said that she had possibly killed her stepdad. I don't know if she really did this, and asked me to move the body with her.
Okay.
I can't help you, and I never saw the body.
Well, what exactly are your reports?
It sounds like she killed this guy.
The 911 caller was Adam Sipliak, and Adam was Jade's friend, although they have a bit of a history, and we'll get into that later. According to Adam, in the evening, he goes over there, and that's when she tells him that she found out that her 64-year-old, feeble and sickly stepfather, his name is Tom Merriman, was basically a pervert. That she found out that her stepfather, Tom, basically had hundreds of nude photos of her on his computer, some of them going back to when she was a teenager. At this time, she's in her 30s.
It was the most violating, just awful, gut-wrenching feeling ever. I felt sick. I couldn't even touch my own skin.
And so Adam is shocked. He's like, oh my God, no way. And she's like, it gets gnarlier. I killed him. I gave him drugs, and then I put a bag over his head. I strangled him, and he's in the back of my 4Runner. Adam says that Jade tells him she needs his help, that Tom is too heavy, and she wants him to basically carry Tom from her car, put him in his bed, which, by the way, he lives next door to Jade. Jade and her stepfather live like right next door to each other. Put him in his bed so that it looks like he overdosed. Adam says his first thought was, fuck, I'm at a murder scene. He says immediately he like pulls his sleeves up and he starts like wiping down all the things he touched. And he's already thinking, how am I going to get out of this? He tells her, listen, I can't do this. I can't help you. I have a son to raise. I'm not going to get caught up in this. But at the same time, he said he felt bad because of what she told him. He ends up staying a little bit longer and asking her questions like, are there any marks on him? And she goes, maybe on his hands a little bit. And then he says that they end up sharing a cigarette together. And then she gives him a kiss goodbye and he leaves. It was New Year's Eve, so he ends up going to his friend Justin's home. When he goes to Justin's home to like celebrate New Year's, he tells Justin, I was just at this girl's house. He doesn't say her name, but she had a dead body and she wanted me to help her move the dead body. And his friend's like, what? And he's like, yeah, I'm not going to tell you anymore because I don't want you to get caught up. And they didn't talk about it after that. Well, according to Adam, he goes home and he can't sleep. He's just thinking about it and he doesn't know what to do. So when he wakes up in the morning, he calls his friend who's a detective. His friend is like, you need to call the cops and tell them immediately. So that's what he does. Based on this call, the police end up doing a welfare check on Tom. They go to his home and nobody's there, nobody answers, and they start calling his relatives to try to figure out where he is. Well, as the cops are in Tom's home, they see that Jade, who lives right next door, is pulling out in her vehicle. So they end up following her and pulling her over. When they pull her over, they ask her to go to the station that like they can't find Tom and people are saying that Tom is missing. So they're starting to get suspicious. They show up a few hours later and they look and look and look and they don't find anything. And then they decide, you know what, we're going to come back in the morning. It's getting dark and we'll keep searching. Well, the next morning, January 2nd, a detective notices that there's this like pile of what looks like trash, like boxes and stuff in Tom's driveway. Looking through the pile, all of a sudden, they realize that there is a body here and it's like wrapped in a blanket. And lo and behold, it's Tom Merriman, her stepfather. He's dead. He is wrapped in a blanket. He's still wearing the hospital bracelet that he was discharged from the hospital wearing the day before, as well as all the same clothes. Immediately, they arrest Jade and charge her with first-degree murder. The arresting officer said that Jade was like oddly calm during the arrest. I need to give you guys the backstory to understand what happened and how it happened. Because to me, that changed everything. Tom Merriman, he came into Jade's life when she was 14 years old. This was in 1995 when he married her mom, Jenny. Jade's biological father was from South Africa, but he was living in California. And she actually, at the time, lived with her father. But she was always going to stay with her mom, who had married Tom. So she was with Tom and her mom often, even though she lived with her dad. So although Jade lived with her biological dad from the age of 14 till 18, she was always going to her mom's house where Tom was and staying there. And then Tom and her mom had a son, her brother, and his name is Cash. So she was going there all the time, hanging out with her brother and her mom and her stepdad. Then, according to Jade, when she was 18 years old, she moved into her mom and Tom's home to help them take care of Cash, her brother. So Jade's mom, Jenny, had some issues. She had mental health issues as well as substance abuse issues. And Tom, as well, had substance abuse issues. The relationship between Jade's mom and Tom was pretty volatile. Like there are lots of domestic violence accusations, and they filed divorce on each other multiple times, and they both have issues with substance abuse. So it seems like it was kind of like an insane environment. Complicating things even more is that Jade talks about this incident that happened. According to Jade, one night her mom kind of lost it. She said that it got so bad that she and Tom and her brother Cash had to essentially pack up their things in the middle of the night and leave her mom. This is when the family dynamics kind of change. Now you've got Jade, who is, an adult. She's a teenager, but she's still an adult. She's kind of becoming her stepfather's wife and her half brother's mother. So Jade says they lived like this for about 5 years until she was 23 years old. And that's when she said she basically couldn't take it anymore. She felt like Tom was way too dependent on her and she just needed to leave. So she leaves and she does keep in contact with Tom, but they're nowhere near as close as they were before. When she leaves, she seems to do very well for herself. She's working for her father. He has this company, and that's when she finds her passion for interior design. Then she eventually will start her own interior design business, and things are going well for her. Meantime, and Tom is kind of doing well in the sense that he has this butterfly farm that was pretty popular in the area. It was like near an elementary school, and a lot of the kids loved going to the butterfly farm.
We have those plants here for many of these butterflies, and we attract the females that lay the eggs, and then we release them into protective enclosures and raise them that way, so we can vet them for health, and protect them from parasitoids.
And do you keep them in the cage for life, or do you let them come in and out?
They're in the vivarium for their life.
And then she says, all of a sudden, he contacts her in April of 2020 when COVID was going crazy, especially if you're in California, like lockdown, everything. And he basically tells her that he has this home that he just bought, and there's this other home right next door, and basically convinces her to come live in the home right next to his. She agrees. And again, it's like same old, same old. She kind of becomes his caretaker, except now she says he is not doing well. Like those 5 years, they didn't do him any favors. He's more haggard. She says he seemed like he aged way more than just 5 years. He's very sad and lonely. And she almost kind of felt bad for him. So she starts cooking for him every night and like doing errands for him and essentially becoming his caretaker.
I've always been a caretaker for Mr. Merriman. So,
What does that mean?
Anytime something would go wrong, when we lived together before, and then after I moved there, if he hurt himself, I'd go get bandages. If he was sick, I'd go get soup. Needed a ride to the doctor, I took him.
At this time, also, mind you, he is even more addicted. He is like full on an alcoholic and is got the Xanax addiction. Basically, he's like popping pills and drinking all the time. Tom's condition was so bad that he ends up giving Jade power of attorney over like the medical decisions for him. She's cooking for him every night. They have dinner like literally together every night. And according to Jade, they had, quote, a very special bond. Jade says that Tom would text her things like, no one will ever love you as much as I do. Even neighbors noticed how close they were because if they ever tried to ask Tom to dinner, he would always say, no, I can't. I'm having dinner with my daughter. Like he can't not even one day not have dinner with her. Now we're coming up to, several weeks before Tom is found dead and something happens. Jade is on a vacation in Mexico. She's in Cabo and she's with a guy. You might remember him, Adam, the one who called 911. Anyway, so she's in Mexico and she says that she gets these weird pictures from Tom, like a bloody towel and like blood somewhere and like a bottle of liquor. And he calls her and she's like, he's not making any sense. He's mumbling. He's saying things like, they beat me up. They broke my ribs. She's trying to figure out what happens. And eventually she realizes that he basically was drunk and he fell and he's hurt. And now he's like, contacting her and telling her. And so she's like, do you want me to come home? And he says no. And so she doesn't come home. But then in mid-December, Tom falls again. This time Jade is there and he's been drinking and taking drugs, and she ends up calling 911. They take him to the hospital and he has a broken rib as well as They had to treat him for alcohol withdrawal and Xanax withdrawal. So a week after he's hospitalized, while he's still in the hospital, Jade is cleaning his office for him because he's about to be released soon. And she's just like cleaning up so everything is ready when he gets out of the hospital. Well, in the office, this is when she discovers the photos. She says that their computer screen was black. And while she's cleaning the desk, she like bumps into the mouse on accident, which triggers the screen to light up, and it shows a screensaver of boobs, breasts. And she says that she notices that those are her breasts because, well, she knows what her breasts look like, obviously, but also she has a birthmark and she could see it. Like, those are her breasts. So now she's like, what the heck is what? So she's like, oh my God. Oh my God. And so she says that she goes into the computer and starts like frantically looking around, and she discovers the worst thing ever. She finds that there are hundreds of photos. There's a slideshow that was made that goes on for a while. And then she found these folders that were like categorized her body parts. Like one folder said Jade's, a word that rhymes with catch, and stuff like that. And so she's like horrified at this point, and she's like, these are pictures that she took consensually, or her boyfriend took when she was in a relationship. They go all the way back to when she was 16. It was like over a decade's worth of photographs. And she's starting to realize that he has access to her laptop. He probably got some of them from there. And then also she remembers that her camera with the SD card in it went missing, and that some of these photos were on that camera. So she thinks he took her camera, he got into her laptop, got these pictures, and has been keeping them. And she loses it. She fully loses it. She's like, she's vomiting, she's freaking out. And so she calls her friend Mike. Mike tells her to erase the photos, and she's like, no, I can't delete the photos because Tom's going to know that I like found the photos. And so she doesn't want him to know that. So she decides that's not going to work for her. And she said that she was afraid of Tom. Then she calls her friend Sarah. Her friend Sarah's like, listen, you go to the cops, like tell your landlord so that they'll force him to leave. Because right now Jade's saying that she like doesn't want to confront him alone and doesn't want him next to her. And she doesn't even feel comfortable like showering or doing anything because he's like lurking. And she feels like she needs to protect herself. So she's like sleeping on a tarp. Like she gets this tarp and she puts it all out and sleeps on the tarp so that anybody who's walking towards her, it will make a noise. The tarp makes noise and it would wake her up. And then she said that she had a knife under her pillow. Like, even though she knows Tom is in the hospital, she says that she's like freaking out, becoming paranoid. Then she says she remembers that her friend Sam told her about someone called Alan Roach, and that if you have a problem and you need someone to fix it, you go to Alan. Alan was a security guard, but apparently he had like some other like side gig that he was doing. I don't know what. So she ends up going on Facebook and messaging Alan. This is the same day she found the photos, this December 23rd, 2020. 10:40 a.m. She sends a message. She goes, Alan, Sam's friend, question mark. A few minutes later, Alan says, is there something I can do for you? She responds, not sure, maybe meet for lunch, chat in person. Awkward situation, not sure how to handle. Sam said if I ever needed help to contact you. And then Alan says, if Sam referred, I am sure I can fix it for you. The next thing that we know is that the day after that, Alan is at Jade's house and he is, quote, guarding her while she showers. Now, there's a little bit of a discrepancy in terms of like what the relationship was. I found certain things that said that they may have had like a physical relationship, and then other things where they didn't, because it seemed like she didn't know him, but also there's a weird message of where she talks to him about the shower, but you decide. But that's a little bit like not for sure. In any case, he's guarding her while she's showering, and then he also helps her go buy security cameras to set up in the home, and is basically like protecting her. But anyway, 2 days later, on December 26th, Jade texts Alan again. She says, hopefully we can figure out a plan because I imagine you're too busy to watch me shower every day. This is where like the speculation comes about, what the nature of their relationship is. But in any case, 2 days after that, Jade says, it's time to come up with a plan. 2 days later, December 30th, she says, I think it's time to tighten up a plan. And then that same day at 12:40 p.m., she texts her friend Mike. And she goes, I still struggle with moral issues, yet I will never not be looking over my shoulder, so I made the call. Mike says, what does that mean? And she says, it means everything you think it means. Later that night, at around 5:30, she texts Alan again. She goes, my mind is spinning. I've got a plan. He says, I need to have a clear mind now that the time is near. He said, there's no room for error, like ERA, but I think he means to say error. She goes, I've given this some thought. I have an easy solution. And then the next morning is when everything goes down. December 31st, New Year's Eve. It is the day that Jade is picking up Tom from the hospital to bring him back. At 10:52 a.m., Jade deletes her nudes from Tom's computer, but not before taking pictures of them on his computer with her cell phone first.
Tom's hard drive was not recovered after his body was found.
Prosecutors also asked Jenks what happened to the hard drive with those nude photos of you on it. Jenks says she took it, but doesn't know where it is.
We found that photo on Tom's laptop showing that it had been used as a wallpaper, showing that it had been on his laptop since August of 2019. So we had no doubt that these photos existed.
About half an hour later at 11:19 a.m., she picks Tom up from the Aviara Healthcare. When Tom is released, he's released with medications that he has prescriptions for, including Zolpidem, which is generic for Ambien, oxycodone, and trazodone. 11 minutes after Jade picks Tom up, she sends a text message to Alan saying, quote, I just dosed the hell out of him, stopping for whiskey, then stopping at Dixie Line to stall. LMK. Let me know, by the way, is what that means, I think. From there, she goes to Bevmo. She buys a little thing of Kettle One vodka, a big bottle of Jack Daniels, some chocolate, like mini chocolates, and Bushmills Irish whiskey. Then she goes to CVS, and it doesn't seem like she got anything from CVS. And then from there, she goes to Dixie Line. From Dixie Line, she gets supplies, including towels, zip ties, 2 kinds of gloves, spray paint, and then she leaves Dixie Line. This is at around 12:30 p.m. She still hasn't heard back from Alan after she texted him, I just dosed the hell out of him trying to stall, blah, blah, blah. So from there, she goes back home. So they're in the driveway, and then their neighbors, okay, it's George, and I forget his wife's name, Ramona, I think. So their neighbors are George and Ramona. They say that they saw Tom sitting in the passenger side of Jade's car, that he was kind of like sitting sideways, like outside of the car, and he had his walker in front of him, not outside, like his feet were outside, but he was still sitting in the seat, and he had a walker in front of him, like, as if he's about to get out of the car, but he was just sitting there. And according to them, he, quote, looked like hell. They say he looked drugged. They were trying to talk to him. He didn't even seem coherent, but they figured, you know what? He just got discharged from the hospital. He's like took this nasty fall. Like maybe he's still on some kind of, pain medication. And they just kind of thought nothing of it, and they moved on. At this point, Jade is trying to get Tom out of her car, right? He's got the walker, but he can't actually like get up and get out of there. She's trying to pull him and whatnot. He's too heavy for her, and he can't get out of the car by himself, and he's drugged to the point where he's like incoherent. Her trying to get him out of the car, he ends up falling. He like falls in the driveway, and she starts sending a bunch of panicked text messages. At 12:39, she texts Alan again. I can't carry him either back to my car or to his house. I'm not strong enough. Can you come like right away? About 5 minutes later, she still doesn't hear back from Alan. So now she texts Adam. Remember, Adam is the one who calls 911. She says, 911, isn't that ironic? Call me. He responds. He basically tells her he's getting a tattoo. He can't come right now, but he says, call Chucky. So a minute or two later, she calls Chucky, but Chucky can't help either. He's like, I'm in the desert. I can't come. She ends up texting her friend Sarah. And she tells her friend, he is alive. Please don't ask me any questions. Just help me get him into the house. 12:57, she texts Alan again. She says, I had to call someone to help me carry him inside. I wish you were closer. 8 minutes after she texts Sarah, Sarah and her boyfriend, Justin, show up. And Justin carries Tom and he puts Tom back into Jade's car. Jade says she's going to take him back to the hospital where she picked him up because something's wrong with him. And they watch her drive away with Tom in the car, and they say that he's alive and like mumbling at the time. He seems like he's on something, but he's alive. So according to Jade, she tried to put him back there, but they weren't able to take him. And then she couldn't come in because of COVID and something like that. So now she's like driving around with him in the car. So according to Jade, she ends up going back to the house. Now it's 1:21 p.m. And this is when Jade opens the notes app on her phone and she starts taking detailed notes of what she's doing, who she spoke to, what she told them, to keep her like story straight, right? So she's keeping a record, like Justin and Sarah came and this is what I told them and this is what I did. And she's going to keep doing this throughout the day. About an hour later, Jade texts Alan. She goes, he's waking up. I really didn't want to be the one to do this. Okay, a minute later, Alan responds. He goes, I can send my partner. She goes, I'm super uncomfortable having another person involved. Right after that, she says, it's pretty much done. I don't need to talk to anyone. 2 minutes later, she goes, how soon will you be here? It's going to be Weekend at Bernie's. Weekend at Bernie's, that movie where like that guy gets murdered and then they're carrying him around with the sunglasses and stuff, making it look like he's like drugged or like really messed up, but he's dead. So she's saying like, it's going to be Weekend at Bernie's. How soon can you get here? She's still trying to get like Alan to come. Alan says, listen, just throw him a bill. I'll send my partner. I'll give him a bill. I'm still have the money you gave me earlier, but I won't be seeing him. Jade responds, he is waking up. I am not sure how much longer I can control my temper. She says, I asked you for help. I tried to do it on my own. I need your help. And now I'm waiting on a stranger. Well, the stranger shows up. His name is Brian. Here's where the things kind of get weird because according to Brian, he says that he was at CVS with his girlfriend when he gets a call from Alan telling him, I need you to buy some gloves and go over to my friend's house, Jade's house, and she needs your help. And there's like this old man, and she needs your help, kind of moving him. He fell, and so according to Brian, he said that he thought like he was going to do a good deed, and that the gloves were, for COVID purposes. So he doesn't get a mask, but he gets gloves. And he goes there. And when he gets there, he said that Jade was standing by her vehicle and that she was, quote, not all there, according to him. And he asks her, like, what do you want me to do? And he says that Jade says, I want you to strangle him and I'll take care of the rest. So Brian says he told her, okay, 1 second, I need to make a phone call. And he said he ran. He started running down the driveway, he calls his girlfriend and he's like, pick me up like right now. And then he calls Alan and he's like, what the hell are you trying to get me into some kind of murder? And then he leaves. His girlfriend picks him up and he leaves. Then Alan texts Jade. Okay. This is at 3:41 p.m., about 10 minutes after Brian showed up and ran away. And he says, I ordered him to leave. I didn't want him involved like that. Now Jade starts texting who? Adam, the guy that was getting that tattoo that she went to Mexico with, who ends up calling 911. that guy. She sent him a message. She goes, "Are you done?" And then he says no, like that he's still getting his tattoo. Then she goes back to texting Alan, the one who just told her, like, I told Brian to leave. She goes, "Fuck, he's up. I guess I am on my own." Then 4 minutes later, she says, "By the way, he is waking up and getting way more aggressive." No response from Alan. About 15 minutes later, she sends Alan another text. "He is super medicated. I can't keep a kicking body in my truck. I'm about ready to club him." Alan, no response. 2 minutes later, she goes, "He's waking up. I'm about ready to club him." Still no response. 2 minutes later, she goes, "I asked you for your help. I can't do it alone." Then again, a couple minutes later, "He is very aware and I am on my own." No texts for 25 minutes. She doesn't text him, he doesn't text her. And then at 5:01 p.m., she says, "Why are you not responding?" Question mark. And then Jade starts going on the internet and looking up the sheriff's website, like the inmate search that you can search to see if someone got arrested. And she's searching to see if Alan got arrested because she's like, that's probably like the only reason why he's not responding right now. Then she finds out he was not arrested at all. Then finally, 6:05 p.m., she gets a response from Alan. He goes, "So sorry, I got family shit I'm dealing with." Jade immediately is like, "Can you come over?" And then he says, "I have a better idea, but it can't be taken care of tonight. Can't afford a messy job site." Jade starts turning back towards Adam. Remember, she messaged him. He was still getting the tattoo. She messaged him again now, and she asks him, "Can I trust you?" He says, "Yes, you can." Then she says, "Are you done? Can you come over?" And then he says, "I'm almost done. Yeah, I'll be over soon." 7:30 p.m., Adam shows up at Jade's house. And that's when he claims she told him about the pictures and that she drugged him and that she ended up suffocating him by putting a bag over his head or a pillowcase, and that she needs his help to move the body so that she can put it in the bed so that it looks like Tom had an overdose. And that's when Adam says, I don't want anything to do with this, whatever, and he leaves. So now she's like, shit, Adam came, I told him everything, and he doesn't want to help me. What do you think she does after this? She texts Alan again, the one who told her, I can't do anything about this tonight. Okay, it's 8:12 p.m. now, and she goes, "Can you let me know if I'm alone? Question mark. Now I have hours till bruising shows. Need to get inside. This does not end well for me." An hour and 10 minutes later, no response still. She texts him again. She says that she's going to bed, but she still needs to figure out her issue. Now it's the next day, January 1st. Remember, at 9:30 a.m. on New Year's Day is when Adam calls 911. And he tells them, like, hey, she told me about the body. I think she killed her stepfather. Jade has no idea, right? She's still now in the morning trying to figure out what to do with Tom's dead body that's sitting there in the driveway. So it's 10 a.m. now, and she messages Sarah and Justin, and she tells them that she needs their help. Can they come over? And they tell her, no, it's like New Year's Day. We just want to like chill and relax. No, we can't come. According to the neighbor, George, Tom's driveway is kind of shared with the neighbor's driveway. The neighbor, George, he says that Jade comes over and she tells him, sorry, it's like, I'm working on a project. I have a bunch of trash there. Don't worry. I'm going to clean it up. Like, I'll get to it. I'm sorry. And he's like, okay, whatever. That's the pile of trash that Tom's body would be found under, by the way. Now, again, Jade starts sending a bunch of text messages to Alan. So by 3:45 p.m. in the afternoon, Jade texts Alan again. And she tells him, I just need to get him inside. Plan B does not end well for me. She doesn't get a response. Keep in mind that Jade is in possession of Tom's phone. Okay, he's dead. She has his phone. And at 4:41 p.m., she notices a text message come through from his brother Terrence, basically asking him if he's okay and to like check in on him, like, is everything okay? 9 minutes later, Jade calls Tom's brother, and he basically is like, hey, this detective called me. He's looking for Tom. Have you seen Tom? And she says, oh, Tom is asleep. He's tired. He's recovering. But he's okay. Then 2 minutes after this phone call, she texts Alan again, basically saying, I just got this weird call and there's like a detective looking for Tom. And again, Alan is not responding. Despite all of this, right, she's still texting him. Okay. She texts him again. I really need to clear the trash in the driveway. A couple minutes later, if anyone knows, the place would be swarming. And then she says, I have a pile of trash I need to get rid of. Can you send someone? Again, she goes, I really, really need to clear the trash in the driveway. And this is all like within a span of like 10 minutes. After she sends that text message at 5:20 p.m., I really, really need to clear trash in the driveway, to Alan, she sends a text to Tom, right? He's dead at this point. According to the autopsy and stuff, they say that he was dead by this time. And the message says, checking on ya, how feeling, question mark. Like, I guess acting like he's still alive and she's checking on him, like she doesn't know that he's dead in her driveway and she's desperately trying to get rid of the body. Then at 5:33 p.m., Jade sends the last text message to Alan, which is, lose my number, I am getting pulled over. This is when she gets pulled over and they take her to the station and they ask her, like, where's Tom? And that's when she told them, I don't know, I picked him up, I haven't seen him. That's where we're at now. This is where we get to the point where I told you, where she gets released, they get the search warrant, eventually they find the body and they arrest her. So now we're back to where we started. When Jade gets arrested, she pleads not guilty. She had like $1 million bond, but she's out on bail and she had to like surrender her passport and have a GPS ankle monitor. During this time, when she's out on bail waiting for her trial, she's telling people that Tom died of cancer, which is like really weird. Now it's time for the trial. Okay. And this is where, for me, a lot of things changed because we've got the text messages. Okay. Those don't lie. But then we also have a lot of like people's version of events of what actually happened. And this is where things kind of get a little bit blurry and it's hard to know who to believe. Toxicology showed that in Tom's system was zolpidem, trazodone, oxycodone, gabapentin, and lidocaine. Now, he had a prescription for all of these except for the gabapentin. Jade, however, had a prescription for gabapentin.
Did you share medication?
I have, yes.
When I say share medication, I mean with Mr. Merriman.
Yes. Most of the time it was, he'd ask me for a medication or I'd tell him to try something. Yeah, I did.
Okay. Did you ever use any of his medications?
No.
According to the autopsy, the cause of death was acute zolpidem intoxication, which zolpidem is generic for Ambien, which is used to treat insomnia. And it said the contributing factors were cardiomegaly, which is an enlarged heart, and hepatomegaly, I think, I don't know, an enlarged liver. The thing is, in the trial, a big part of, what they said killed him was that she strangled him. But in the autopsy, there's no mention of strangulation and there's no evidence of strangulation. There was this whole controversy about the petechia, like when the dots, when the blood vessels burst in the eye and what caused it, because they were saying it was from strangulation, but then the medical examiner said, no, that was lividity or something. So according to the prosecution, Jade strangled him, even though the autopsy has no evidence of strangulation, because he was so drugged that it really didn't take much to strangle him. She didn't have to squeeze hard enough to cause bruising or to break a bone or to have that petechia, like his blood vessels bursting in his eye. That wasn't necessary because he was already so out of it. The amount of Ambien that Tom had in his system was actually not lethal. And so that was another thing the defense was saying, is that he just took his medication, but he was so sick that it killed him. And according to the prosecution, they said no, like she gave it to him to drug him and then she strangled him. And according to the autopsy, even though that amount is not lethal, because his liver was so damaged, it couldn't really get rid of that toxin, right? And so for his weak body, that small amount actually was lethal. Then there was the issue of DNA. The Ambien packet that Tom had when he was discharged, there were several pills missing. Those were the ones he took that ended up killing him. Jade's DNA was on that packet. Tom's was not. So the prosecution was like, she took the pills and she drugged him. The defense was like, no, she just was looking through his medication and helping him as his caretaker. And that's why her DNA was on there and not his. Then they revealed that there was a plastic bag that had Tom's DNA on the inside and Jade's DNA on the outside, which is why they were saying that she strangled him, in addition to the fact that Adam said that that's what she told him. Now it's time for Adam and Brian and eventually Jade as well to testify. So first it was Brian who testified. Remember him? By the way, Alan, the guy who she texted a bajillion and one times, he never showed up that day, although Adam and Brian did. And so he was never charged with anything and he was not part of the trial. Even though she sends him a million texts and he seems to have planned something with her, he was not involved at all in the trial. Brian, the guy he sent, though, ended up testifying. So according to Brian, he was like, she told me that she wanted me to strangle him and kill him. I ran away. I came there thinking I was doing a good deed, and she's like crazy. But then when he was cross-examined by the defense, they pointed out that you never actually told the police anything. Even when it came out that, this guy got killed and everything like that, you never contacted the police. In fact, the police contacted you. And even then, when the police contacted you the first time, you never told them that Jade told you to strangle him at all. You only said that after you got 2 really bad domestic violence charges. Are you just saying that to try to get some sort of deal to get you out of these charges? Which, by the way, the charges are really bad. I'll tell you what they are. First, on May 22nd, 2022, a couple months after this whole thing happened with Tom, Brian gets arrested for pushing his girlfriend out of a car, a moving car, actually. And then on June 21st, 2022, he violated the restraining order she took out on him and tells her that he's going to kill her if she tells the cops. It was only after those 2 charges that he told police that, oh, by the way, she wanted me to strangle him and this and that. And then he ends up testifying. And so the defense was like, basically what? Like, you cut a deal? And so how can we believe you? Because your story, you never told, and then now your story's changing. Like, you're not really reliable. That's Brian. The more important witness was Adam, right? He's the one who called 911 and he's the one who said that like she strangled him and everything like that. Well, guess what? He also has domestic violence and restraining order against him, and he's also like hard to believe. Okay. I don't know. Anyway, he basically said that he's known Jade for like 10 years and that his girlfriend didn't like Jade. And so he stopped talking to her. But then in 2020, he broke up with his girlfriend. And so that's when he reached out to Jade. And that when he went on that trip with her to Mexico, he was trying to sleep with her, but she rejected him. And so when she reached out to him on New Year's Eve, he thought he was, quote, going to get lucky, which is why he wanted to go there. And that it wasn't until he went there and saw the situation that he realized, oh my God, like this is not what I thought this was going to be. Now, the thing about it is that the ex-girlfriend, okay, he threatened her with crazy threats where she had to get a restraining order out on her. Let me tell you. So he claims he doesn't remember these texts, and then they were read to him, and he's like, I don't remember. I sent so many text messages. I don't remember. But he literally texted her, you deserve to die. I'm going to cut his throat and beat the F out of you. And then when she got a restraining order out on him, he texted her that he was going to staple the restraining order to her forehead. So like these two guys are really amazing gentlemen. So now it's Jade's turn to testify.
My name's Jade Jenks.
And this was like the moment everyone was waiting for. This was towards the end of the trial. And this is when she describes how she found the photos.
When I went to clean in his office area, I was kind of wiping things down, and I bumped the mouse on his desktop computer, and it shook the screen awake. And I looked, and there's a picture of female breasts on the screen. And I look, I have a beauty mark on my chest, and I look at them, those are my breasts. It's the most violating, just awful, gut-wrenching feeling ever. I felt sick. I felt I couldn't even touch my own skin. There was a rolling screen, like a slideshow of pictures of me that I've taken over the years.
What type of pictures were they?
They were naked photos.
Did you ever give naked photos to your stepfather?
No.
Did you ever show him naked photos of yourself?
No.
Had you ever made any sexual overtures toward your stepfather?
No.
Did you tell him that you had nude photos of yourself?
No.
And you never showed him anything similar to those, correct?
No, he was my dad.
This is where she basically says that her plan was not to kill him at all, that she didn't kill him, that he actually took the medication himself. He was grabbing her meds. He was trying to take all kinds of meds. He had a drug problem. And that when she was talking about the plan and all these things in text messages, that she was talking about having Alan come there to confront him so that they could kick him out, that she just wanted him to move out of the house and wanted to scare him into doing that, and that she wasn't actually trying to kill him. During her testimony, the photos that she found on the computer, there were printouts of them.
I need you to take a look through these photos.
And they were handed to the jury, and some members of the jury, they like didn't even want to look at it and like shook their head and passed it along. Other ones were looking at it a lot, and they seemed really affected by that. But the part that I think was really hard to swallow was her complete and absolute denial that she was trying to kill him, because the text messages really paint a different picture. When she was asked about what Adam said, she was like, no, that's not what happened. What happened is that when he came over and he saw how bad Tom was doing, he told me he's going to die from an overdose, and you like called me here knowing that he's going to die, and now you got me like involved, and that you're trying to set me up, and that's why he got mad and left, that she never told him that she actually killed him. Then she was confronted with like, why didn't you call the cops? Cops came and they asked her and you didn't say anything. Well, why? She goes, well, this is what happened. He was high and I couldn't carry him, and I was asking people for help. Nobody came. And so usually when this happens, because it's happened before, I just leave him in my car. I even gave him some pillows, some blankets.
I made sure he's comfortable. Yeah, he had pillows, and I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I mean, he had a blanket.
And usually I will wake up the next morning and he's fine. He'll wake up and he'll walk to the house. But this time it was different. She's like, I went to check on him in the morning, and when I touched him, he was cold, and I knew he was dead.
Did you touch Mr. Merriman?
Yes.
What did you feel?
I tried to pull his leg, and his pajama pant lifted, and his leg was cold.
Ms. Jenks, did you think Tom Merriman was dead at that point?
I knew he was.
She's like, I didn't tell the cops because I didn't want to get blamed for killing him. Not I didn't want to get blamed for his death. I didn't want to get blamed for killing him.
Did you think about calling 911?
I was scared too.
Why were you scared?
I didn't want to get blamed. I mean, I was the one that picked him up, and I didn't want to get blamed for for killing him.
I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into it a little bit, but it just seems weird, that phrasing. Which, by the way, speaking of phrasing, when she's under cross-examination, the prosecution are like, what about the part where you said I dosed the hell out of him? She's like, that's poor phrasing.
I guess it's a poor phrasing.
And then there's several instances where she gets like confronted with her own words, and the prosecutor's like, this looks really bad, doesn't it? Or isn't this suspicious? And she's just like, yeah, it is.
You would agree with me that this looks very suspicious, this text message.
Oh, yeah.
This text message looks very suspicious. You'd agree with me, right?
I mean, yeah.
You would agree with me that the phrase, I just dosed the hell out of him, implies that you gave Tom a whole lot of drugs.
It does sound like that. I sent these messages not knowing that all this was going to happen. It was going to get read. It's more just like, I'm getting frustrated. I could club him on the head. It wasn't like actually club him on the head.
Even when they told her, what about the Weekend and Bernie thing? She's like, no, that's like, I'm just saying, like, he's going to look like he's drugged, like he's so out of it. Not that he's actually dead. Then it was revealed that at one point, when he is dead and he is in her car and she's trying to get him out and she can't because no one can help her, and now he's dead. So she ends up going to the hospital with him in the trunk of her car, dead. Instead of telling the people at the hospital that, hey, like, my stepfather's dead in this car, she gets a wheelchair, puts it back there with him. They even ask her, like, how did you manage that? And she's like describing it.
Trunk was up. Tom was kind of, his legs were akimbo. He was laying down. And I kind of hoisted it up into the back window of the 4Runner and rolled down.
At this point, did you know Tom was dead?
I did, but I didn't want to know it yet.
She takes him back with the wheelchair, and she says she put the wheelchair out in the driveway, and then she tried to carry Tom and put him on the wheelchair while he's dead, and he falls. And she can't put him on the wheelchair. And that's when she decides, I'm just going to cover him up with trash at this point.
I continued to follow out. I still wanted to get him into his house. I didn't know what else to do. I put the blanket over him. I got empty boxes and just kind of stacked it, made it look like just like a pile of debris.
Then there was this whole thing that happened right before the jury was set to deliberate, where Jade's lawyer was telling her that, like, we need to put lesser charges on there, because right now she's charged with first-degree murder. That's it. It's either first-degree murder or not guilty. Jade's lawyer is telling her, based on the circumstances of like the nude photos and everything like that, you could have other lesser charges on there, like second degree or manslaughter, and that I think it's better for you to do that. But Jade is like, no, it's not guilty or nothing. Like, and then there's a point where they're in the hallway and her lawyer is like putting his hand on her shoulder, telling her, like, Jade, this is a really long time, like, please. And she's refusing. Then in front of the judge, the attorney basically tells the judge, like, me and my client disagree. I think she should have lesser charges. She disagrees on that. But like, I believe that I'm going to ask for that even though we disagree. And then the judge also says, well, I agree that like she qualifies for that. And then later on in the day, Jade agrees to have lesser charges. So after that is decided, the jury is sent to deliberate, and they literally take less than a day to come back, like less than 24 hours. They come back and the verdict is guilty.
We, the jury, in the above entitled cause, find the defendant, Jade Sasha Jenks, guilty of the crime of murder.
First degree. And Jade is shocked, flabbergasted, like she could not believe it. And so then it was time for the sentencing. And this is where you really get people kind of upset. So Jade ends up getting sentenced to 25 years to life. Also, what was interesting is that during the sentencing, Jade came out and said that essentially she was abused by Tom, which during the trial she denied.
You see anything in his conduct with you that concerns you at all?
No, it's a little bit confusing to explain. So Tom Well, not inappropriate with me. I've trusted him more than anybody. I've been comfortable, but there's always something kind of skeezy. Tom came into my life when I was just a little girl and exerted influence during that early stage of development when I was still figuring things out. Unfortunately, that influence manifested itself into appropriate touch, coercion, reckless behavior, and complete violation of what I now realize is years of psychological manipulation. All of this came crashing down on me when I found hundreds of naked photos of myself in his computer. I felt shattered. I'm still picking up the pieces, and it's sincere hope that over the next few years, I can put the pieces back and heal from this trauma. I'm sorry I didn't act the way I was supposed to that day. I think about it every day since. And to Tom's family, I understand you hate me for what you believe I did to Tom. However, there's a lot more than you'll ever understand.
Jank's father, Steve, spoke, saying his daughter was wrongly convicted.
I truly believe that an injustice has taken place. This case was not one on its merit. It was one based on an Oscar-winning performance by the DA.
I want the court to know my brother may have possessed inappropriate photos, which is wrong. But there was evidence that such the killer had little ethical or moral concerns with disseminating inappropriate photos of herself.
After the sentencing, her attorney was asked by reporters, like, why did you not mention this during the trial, like that she was abused? And he said, quote, "It's because Jade has asserted she did nothing to cause the death of Mr. Merriman. Had she actually caused the death of him, that's something that goes towards a manslaughter charge. That's provocation." He also said that they're going to file an appeal. As for the current situation, in terms of like the butterfly farm, it apparently, after the drama came out of what he did, people were mad and there was a public outcry. And so the place they were renting from, they raised the rent 3 times the regular price, which essentially forced them to not be able to stay. And now they're trying to find somewhere else. The other guy who owns it is like trying to find somewhere else for the butterfly farm. Now I want to talk about the theories, because there's basically 3 theories. And it's like either people believe her fully that she didn't kill him, or they believe that she killed him and they think like she got what she deserved. That's not okay. Can't do vigilante justice. She should have reported him. And then there's a huge group of people who say, yes, she's guilty. She killed him, but also either they're like, he had it coming, or they're like, that was too harsh of a sentence. So I want to talk about that, because like one of the main things, and this is a little bit my opinion too, is I just feel like her lawyer did not do a good job at all. The way they tried to deny the fact that she was trying to kill him, to me, was so unbelievable. The text messages are way too damning. The evidence, it just did not support anything other than that she was trying to kill him. Now, if their approach was to say, yes, she did do that, but you have to understand, he's been grooming her since she was young, abusing her since she was a teenager, which she said in the sentencing. And then on top of that, she sees these photos and she gets in basically a spiral. Yes, maybe you could say, it kind of was premeditated, but you could also say like she wasn't in her right mind given what she's been through. And I really think had they taken that approach and been more honest, and maybe she spoke up more about the details of what he did to her, the jury might have been more sympathetic. Maybe she would have gotten a lesser charge. It's like hard to feel sorry for this guy. I'm sorry, not sorry. It's kind of like, I get it, like you're not supposed to kill someone over something like this, but at the same time, I can understand someone having a lack of faith in the system that justice would be served, because it happens a lot. I don't know. I just feel like if she had been honest, it might have gotten her farther. And I just think her lawyer is not good at all. Like his defense was not believable. Like when I was listening to the closing arguments, I was like, who are you fooling? Clearly no one. If he's going to do the appeal, I don't know. I think she should be better off with someone else, my opinion. As for this theory that she's saying that he, just took the medication himself and died and there's no evidence of strangulation, I don't necessarily believe that. because if he really was drugged, and she said she dosed him, she said she drugged him. So, I mean, there's that. Her DNA is on the thing, and she's upset that he's waking up. She's talking about smacking him over the head. She's saying, I really didn't want to be the one to do this. You've got two separate people who don't know each other who said that she asked them to kill him, although they're not really the most reliable people. She definitely was planning on ending his life with the help of this Allen guy who backed out, and then she got herself all caught up, and she was not making the best decisions. She absolutely, in my opinion, killed him. So for me, I'm in the middle, right? I definitely don't think that it's okay and that she should have gone off and been like completely not guilty, because then, you know, like, we're a civil society, we have laws. You can't just do that even though you really want to. Okay. 25 to life. I don't know. First degree, I don't know. Same with the whole like not guilty thing. I don't think that's either. I think something in the middle, right? For me, some kind of second degree or manslaughter, something like that. She needs therapy. She needs treatment. And you know, there were all these articles that came out being like that farm, the butterfly farm, was really close to an elementary school, and most of the people who went to his farm were kids, and then, you know, like alluding to things like that. Like, I don't know, a guy like that, you know, I mean, he doesn't seem to be like that amazing. Okay. Not saying he deserved to die, but I'm not crying about it either. Okay. I'll just say that. All right. Sorry. Okay. Sue me. Don't sue me, actually. Whatever. The whole thing is really messed up. I'd love to know what you guys think. You know, how guilty do you think she is? What do you believe actually happened? And, you know, what is the appropriate outcome for something like this, in your opinion? Please let me know. I really want to hear your opinion. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.